Welcome to the Stepmom Side with Alicia Krasko, the podcast for stepmoms ready to create the life they want and one they actually have a say in. Here we talk all things stepmom life and just a little bit more. Leave the superficial conversations at the door and get ready for perspective shifts and actionable advice to help you on your way to creating the life you want, one step at a time. Hi, Nika. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Okay, so people may or may not know this because they have read the show notes, hopefully, but we're going to talk about divorce and like high conflict stuff and how to prepare for court, like what that looks like. So before we get into everything, can you talk to me what we hear so many people say, oh, I've got a high conflict bio mom, or our situation is high conflict. And I know that you hear this all the time, but what actually is a high conflict situation? Can anyone just say that?
Yeah. I mean, I think we do say that because it's just a term that we use like, oh, he's so high conflict or she's so high conflict. But in this world, when we're talking about high conflict, and not that we're diagnosing anyone, but typically they have the same kind of personality traits as like cluster B personality disorder. So it's like black or white thinking, all or nothing, my way or the highway. Like there's no gray area here. There's no compromise. Their goal is typically conflict. It's actually not to find agreement.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, you find that a lot. I mean, when you're getting divorced, nobody's typically happy about that. So you can have a lot of um, upset, but there's typical upset, and then there's I'm out to get you upset, and I'm going to make this super hard no matter the cost. Kids, family, don't care who's in the way.
That is so crazy, right? And then there's probably some sort of other personality situation going on as well. Like if it's super, super conflict. Like you said, you're
Yeah,
not diagnosing anyone, but it's
yeah, yeah. It's easy to the word narcissist. Oh, he's such a narcissist. It's thrown around so much, and really, I mean, the population that's diagnosed is so small. That's
mhm.
also for another reason too. I mean, they have to have certain criteria, and one of the criteria is they have to admit that it's affecting their life. And so usually a narcissist won't see that. So
Correct.
yeah. So diagnosis actually doesn't matter if they're presenting with all of these qualities. That's all that matters because we're only using it as a tool to understand their behavior and try and um, predict patterns, so we can protect ourselves. So the diagnosis doesn't really matter. It just is a helpful tool to look at some of those patterns.
Okay. So
Yeah.
people typically are going to go to court at some point in time, like whether for their divorce, right? But then like if they have remarried or they've repartnered and they're going to change like custody schedules or the child support amount or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And if you're working through going to court, you've probably heard document, 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 right? Which I think is your best friend. Can you talk to us about documentation? Like what does that look like? What are a few tips that you possibly have for documentation to like make it your strongest case? Talk me through that.
Yeah, it really depends what you're going for, but in the situation that we work with a lot, high conflict co-parenting, let's say, and you're going in to change your custody order, that type of documentation, it's obviously fact-based, it's non-emotional. There's stuff the court cares about, and there's stuff that we as parents care about. The
Mhm.
court doesn't care if your transition time is 7 o'clock and the kids came without dinner and they're never fed dinner, and oh my gosh, he's so careless because he never feeds them dinner. Like, they don't care. Um, every state has what's called the best interest factors, and it's what the court uses to determine, where the kids are going to be safest when they're determining custody. And so it would be beneficial if you were looking at going to court to go to your state website and find your state's best interest factors and find out what the court actually cares about and document those things. So instead of saying like, he's got this pattern of returning the kids 5 minutes late. He's never on time and he never feeds them dinner, and the kids have holes in their pants. They don't care. But what they might care about is consistency, or every state is a bit different. But yeah, so I would go off of those things instead of what you as a parent care about and what you think is important, because I guarantee you it's not the same.
Okay. And as far as documenting go, what should they be documenting?
Yeah. So if it is, I'll just use the co-parenting example because it just
Stay
depends.
consistent.
But yeah, we'll stay consistent. So, for co-parenting stuff, if you are trying to prove that you need to change your custody order because things are not going well and you are documenting those things, you're going to find patterns of behavior, not a one-off, not this one time. So, patterns of behavior is what they're looking for, things that are consistently affecting the kids. What that can look like is, let's say you rough draft this and you're just keeping a little a journal in your Google Drive, right? This is what happened. This was the time, this is the date, and this is what happened. Over time, you're going to start to see patterns. You can label those patterns. That's what they're going to care about.
Okay. And I like that you just said in a Google Drive because people are like, okay, well, what do I do? Like, should I document emails, screenshots? Like, absolutely.
Yeah, Google Drive is a good one. It would take probably a full hour or two to explain my method of doing the Google Drive, but start there. You can color code your files once you start having this emergence of patterns, and then you just drag and drop stuff into those files, and that just keeps it neat and tidy. Plus, you can share it with your lawyer if you need to, or your
That's
coach.
so brilliant. Oh my gosh. I have a girlfriend years ago that had a binder that was color coded
Mhm.
and I would let me see that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you are so, and she was like, you have to be, Alicia. Like if you're going to court, you have to be. This might be the only time that you get to talk to the judge. This might be the only time that you get any FaceTime to like represent yourself and you need everything there. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay. But it's like a
yeah.
full-time job, right?
Literally, yeah. And then there's the balance between, again, we're back to like what we care about as parents and what the court cares about. So I actually advise people to do two binders. So one for you because it's your truth and it's your story and it kind of helps you get your brain right. And then we're gonna, as a coach, that's what I do. I go through and I help them pull what is the court actually going to care about, and then we'll pick 3 to 5 of the most intense examples. And then, the party line is, Your Honor, I've pulled the top 3 to 5 most significant examples of this pattern of behavior. Should you be interested? I have 300 more over here, but I don't want to overwhelm you. But that way, it's like, it's not just these things, but out of respect for your time and the court, yeah, again, they're not going to sit there and read everything. You
Mhm.
need to catch their attention, but you also need to like substantiate with all your evidence. So it's good to have it for yourself. And then, yeah, they need the
Clear.
flyover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clear, concise communication definitely goes a long way to like get it together and like make you look like you have it together. Okay, so let's say that we've got all of our documentation. We are ready for a court case. The question I get is, how do I live my day-to-day life
Mm,
knowing that that is coming? And I feel like I'm on pins and needles the entire time. How do I pretend like everything is okay when my stepkids come over, knowing that this is going to be an uphill battle the whole way? Like, how do you coach people through that?
yes, it is so hard. That is just, it just takes so much practice, right? And making sure that you have outside of your family, so outside of your husband, having your coach or your friends, or I mean, your friends and family are good. And also they get pretty worn out, I'm sure, if it's, a typical high conflict situation, because it's like the first check-in question, like, oh my God, what'd she do? Oh my gosh. And so you kind of, so I think having a coach is really good, even a therapist is really good, and working through that so that, we're going back to keeping our house the safest bubble that we can. And just, we have influence over our home. And we don't want our homes to be places of chaos or places where that when the kids come, they know that it's tense because we've got this thing going on. And so just trying to protect your home as much as possible and trying to keep it out there. Lots of walks.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you've talked about having an outlet for yourself.
Yeah.
Whether it was like in the binder, like having the parental one versus like what the court is going to care about, and just having like that outlet for you to offload, brain dump, whatever it is that you want to call it, just so you can like have that freedom to just like download everything, but also have bandwidth for everything else. Because I feel like typically with women, we just keep everything like a mental list or a mental load, right? And so having that offloading of like, okay, the court might not care about this, but I care about this. But then they've also got you to kind of like bounce ideas off of, but then also, making sure that they're taking care of themselves. And I 100% completely agree with you. Like your friends and family burn out so fast having to listen to that. And it's kind of adrenaline pumping for you too, to be like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this. Or, okay, I'm going to see Nika today. So I need to remind her to tell her about X, Y, and Z. You're not going to believe what happened. And then so then you get into this like it feels good to do it, but then also you're like super drained after. And that's what I say to stepmoms that I coach too. Like, be mindful of who you're talking to because every time you see that person, probably one of the very first things they're going to ask you is like, so what's the latest? Or like, what's happened? And that's not always the first thing that you want to go into because you're more than a stepmom, right? And so get that help outside of like your family or your friends and somebody that gets it and like has been through it and can help you channel harness that energy into something else.
Yes, yes, it's so important. It's just another boundary, right? Like we're gonna keep your friends, for friend things. And like it's so great to be able to process with them. And of course they care about you and want to know what's going on with your life. But you're exactly right. You're more than a stepmom, you're more than the high conflict situation, you're more than what crazy mom just did last week. Like we're kind of tired of talking about it. We're tired of thinking about it. And we do need to for our own self to be able to process through a lot of those things. So I think that's why coaches are so important, right? To be able to someone who gets it, someone who knows. And you can also kind of get right to the chase because when you're trying to explain this to just, a girlfriend who has no experience with a high conflict ex or being a stepmom, it's kind of like years of context, it's like you don't quite get it, So like you and I can jump in a conversation in 12 seconds. It's like, okay, so it's like our own language, right? And
Yeah.
can get right there and, so yeah, I think just protecting your friendships and having another part of your life that isn't this.
Yeah, because it does seem to bleed into everything, especially when you're going to court. It literally consumes you. And so, like you
Yeah.
said, like just being able to talk it out. If you are going through, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, we're gearing up for a court battle or we are in the middle of a court battle, please, for the love of God, like get yourself
Yes.
outside help. Like join a community, get some coaching, get someone that's versed in step family dynamics or court dynamics that understands what you're talking about because it's so easy for your friends to be like, well, they're just kids or it's
Right.
it's not that big of a deal or you only have 3 more years left and you're like, you have no idea how long 3 years can be.
Right.
Like,
Right.
oh my
Right. And
God.
it's not like it just ends when they turn 18. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's common, like, oh, they're going to graduate. And you're like, mm-hmm. And then like, let's talk about college or whatever's in your parenting plan. Or what about when they start having babies or weddings or like, it's not, this is a long game. This is not over when they turn 18. So
Yeah, the communication is less, but yeah, like you said, like
yeah.
college, like in your parenting plan, is it written down or like is it hammered out or like who's paying for parent? I mean, who's paying for parenting? Who's paying for college? How is that divvied up? Or who's paying for a baby shower? Or okay, now you're getting married. Who's paying for the wedding or who's paying for the reception? How are we celebrating holidays? Like there's all of these dynamics. So yeah, it's easier in the sense that you don't necessarily have to have the constant communication,
Right.
but there are other challenges that come up and it's this sounds like super easy to say, like easier said than done, right? But like how hard is it to put your feelings aside about that other person
Yeah.
for a couple of hours for a wedding or a graduation or a baby shower?
Yeah.
How
I know.
fair is it to ask your kids to have two different like baby showers like what's coming to mind to me because I recently talked to somebody about this, but like why do we have to have two baby showers? Can you guys please just get along for an hour? Because then somebody's going to be mad that they didn't get the first one.
Yeah. Right. And that's the thing with high conflict, I was going to say is if you're dealing with just, a difficult divorce, someone not high conflict, but just, I mean, it's difficult, right? No matter how you slice it. And maybe you're just, yeah, you're in a tense spot. And so, yes, like those two people can rally on behalf of the kids, right? And it's kind of like you stay on your side and we'll stay on our side and just kind of you can get through it, even if you're not super chummy, totally fine. The problem with high conflict is they will find a way to whether it's sabotage it, just lay on the guilt so thick for that kid that
Mhm.
they maybe disclude somebody that they otherwise would have because they have to preserve this relationship or feel like they have to, or there's so many other dynamics with the high conflict that is not just like, yeah, I don't really like this person, but we have to kind of show up and like, hey, how's it? Hey, like high conflict, they can't do that. They don't do that. They'll just find a way to ruin it or try to. So
And like the kid is the one that's hurt the most. Like they think
absolutely.
that they're hurting the other parent. That's never what happens.
Right. And that's how you kind of can determine, again, like we're not diagnosing, that's how you can kind of determine when there's some sort of personality disorder or something more extreme going on. Because most people, no matter how much they don't like someone else or don't want to get along, like you're like, God, just like get it together for the kid. Like, okay, fine. Like I said, I'll sit here, you sit there. You don't have to even talk to each other. You can do it. But when it doesn't matter who's in your way, you're trying to have control over something. And it doesn't matter that that's your kid. It doesn't matter that your kid looks at you and says, please don't do this. This is not what I want. It doesn't matter to them. They will always choose themselves. And so it's pretty easy early on to kind of see where they are on that spectrum.
Yeah, it goes back to that old saying of like you have to love your kids more than you hate your ex,
Yep. Yeah.
which it blows my mind. Like, I mean, I know that you see it too, but like things that I see in coaching, I'm like, how? How
Exactly.
do you do this? Not the stepmom, but like the other parent. I'm like, what where are you? Like, come back to earth. Like, please come back. Like you're not hurting the stepmom and their partner. You're hurting your own kids. Like you're putting them in the middle. Let's switch gears real quick and talk about the gray rock method because this is a big thing, right? And
Yes.
oh, it's such a great thing to use in court, but you say no. Tell me.
Yeah, I was like, mm-mm.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah. So gray rock method is essentially being as interesting as a gray rock when you are interacting with your co-parent, right? So the advice that some people give is, hey, if you have a high conflict co-parent and they're peppering you with all kinds of things and accusations, whatever, just, like noted, see you at 5, whatever. You don't. Yes and no. So, what's good about it is you're right. You don't have to engage all of the accusations. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to sit there and explain your feelings or any of that. The only thing you need to respond to is what's in your parenting plan and if it's relevant to the kids. So, saying a party line like noted or received or something like that, where you're not engaging at all, in the eyes of the court can look bad. It looks like you're a disengaged co-parent, an unwillingness to co-parent. And that's on most states' best interest factor is like a willingness to co-parent with the other parent. So even if you don't like them, you still have to answer their questions. You still have to respond to their emails when they're relevant, right? We're not answering about like, well, this is just like the time Christmas of 97 when whatever. We're
Yeah.
not talking about that. That can just be I received your email. Thank you. I will be there at 5. Um, that's not gray rocking though. So there's like this middle ground
Mhm.
where we call it I mean, well, we don't, I didn't coin this. The BIF method is what family court prefers. And so that's brief, informative, friendly, and firm. Bill Eddy came up with that from the High Conflict Institute, and it's a great resource for high conflict co-parenting. So you're writing a brief message, you're not long-winded, informative, it's just information, no feelings. Friendly can just be the greeting. Hey, John, thanks, Sally. Look, friendly. And then firm is just if there's a decision that needs to be made instead of just kind of throwing it back in their court. It's if I don't hear from you by 5 o'clock, I'll assume this, thanks. So that's just a way to show the court that you are willing to co-parent, you're answering relevant information, you're not withholding anything, you're playing by the rules, and it just, it's taking the high road without, just giving the middle finger,
Yeah,
which
right. Which like sometimes feels like it would be such a great idea, but you never
totally.
know who's actually going to see it. Uh, I love
On
that
that,
you.
I would say if you have a high conflict co-parent, just speaking of, you don't know who is going to see it, this is like something that I tell my clients all the time. You are not writing to your co-parent. So like you can't stand this person and it's hard to even write hello Sally because you can't stand Sally and you don't even want to write that. But like it's an assignment. It's like think of it like a school assignment and think
Yeah.
of it like to judge. Think of it like anything that you are writing is just think of it that way. This is all going in front of somebody. So don't, you're never writing something private to your co-parent, and that should also help a lot with the emotion piece. Like this is just business. It's a business relationship
Mhm.
and it's to judge. It has nothing to do with you. This is not personal. I'm not even writing to you. This is,
Oh,
this
I
is
love that. And I like
yeah.
how you transitioned from the grit rack to the Biff method because that's exactly where I was going to go next. So if you were listening
Yes.
to this and you're like, what did she say? So it's Biff, Biff, brief, informative, friendly, and firm. And I love that you clarified the friendly part of it because I'm sure somebody heard that and was like, no, I am not going to be friendly. Like, hey, how are you? No, we don't need to do that. Like, just, hey, Nika,
Yep.
whatever. Yeah.
Thanks
I like that.
for your
Also, you have another method that you talk about, the Jade method. Tell me about that.
justify, argue, defend, and explain. Okay, so when you're communicating with somebody high conflict, we're not going to do those things. We're not going to justify, argue, defend, or explain our position because what they're after is engagement from you. What
Mhm.
they want is conflict. What they want is to know that they still have you. Like, oh, it's literally like they get bored and they need a fix. And they're like, I'm going to go poke her buttons because I know that if I can do, like, I know that, integrity is really important to her. So I'm going to go attack that. And then she'll explain herself because she can't stand to not explain herself. Right. And it's
Mhm.
just like a little poke. And then sure enough, you're like, that's not what happened. Even when you're doing it in a very polite way, like, hey, I recognize that's your perspective, but that's not what happened. They still got you.
It's an
They still,
engagement.
it's an engagement. Yeah. It's like press, right? Any press, bad press, it's good. It's press.
Yeah.
So they don't care if it's good, bad. They're in fact the bad stuff's more dramatic and fun for them. So they're
Yeah.
just gonna get you. So yeah, if it has nothing to do with the kids and nothing that you have to answer according to your court order, you don't have to answer it. And when you do, you're not justifying, arguing, defending, or explaining.
I love that. It's like a way that I think about it is just a troll of your own life. Because you see
Yeah.
them all the time online. They just say whatever they say, right? Because it gets engagement and gets somebody else to just, like keyboard warrior back. And then
Totally.
it's engagement. But you can't fight with somebody that doesn't respond.
Right. Yeah, they're committed to misunderstanding you as well. So it's
Yeah.
like, no matter how many, I mean, that is a lesson that took a long time for my husband and I to learn because we're like, what if we tried this? Okay, no, I see your perspective. Oh yeah, no, maybe that was it, but we'll try this. But it doesn't matter. If you say this, they'll say this. If you say this, they'll say this. Like there is no quote unquote winning. It's not about winning, but you know what I mean? The phrase like
Yes.
it doesn't matter. You can give them everything you want. You could agree with everything they say, and they will still find a problem with it
Mhm. A
because it's not
hundred
about
percent. And you
resolution.
can't make somebody that is out to misunderstand you, understand you, or
No.
understand the situation. Like you said, there's no winning. And it's not a competition. It's not a pissing match of like who said like it's not that. It's just like you can't win for dying, right? Like you're never going to be able to justify your position. You're never going to be able to argue them back to see your side or defend. Yeah, it's just there's no way of getting through to them because they're going to choose to be high conflict no matter what.
Yeah, they're not trying to problem solve at all. So you sitting there and trying to think of a million ways that you could like, let's propose this or let's try that. It doesn't work, but it takes a long time to get there because,
Mhm.
you know, personally, this was my first experience with somebody high conflict. And so I had no idea. I'm like, I keep trying this or I keep trying this or what if we tried that? It doesn't work and you have no context. You have to learn a whole new language. So
Mhm.
it's not intuitive. It's not how you would problem solve with anyone, even if you don't get along with them. Even a bad boss or something, you're like, hey, we see that differently, but like it's a whole different beast. So learning the appropriate communication with somebody high conflict, understanding that you're not going to reach common ground. So what can you do in the meantime? And how can you protect yourself and make sure that you're not getting stuck in their traps that they will then use against you in
Yeah.
court otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think something important to note here is you really have to take your ego out of it. And
Yes.
that took me so long to learn because I was like, well, you can't have the last say. Like that's not even right.
Right.
I'm going to justify. I'm going to argue. I'm going to defend. No, you're not, Alicia. Like it's not you can't and like what does it matter if this person thinks that I'm a terrible person? I
Right.
know that that's not true. But then, like, then I can hear people be like, well, yeah, but, all of the things, right? I know you say yes and, but like, yeah, but that person this, and yeah, but that person this. And I'm like, yeah, I hear you. But a person that is got the best intentions and is so set on doing the right thing, not like this hidden ulterior motive or hidden agenda, is going to be doing the right thing and will be able to be like, oh, Nikki, you're doing that because X, Y, and Z, and you can actually have a conversation with. And
Exactly.
I always feel like, and I'm sure you feel this too, whenever you put something out about like a tip or a strategy or a mindset or whatever it is, you have to say, okay, this is barring any diagnosis. This is barring any abuse. This is barring the kids being in danger, like all of the things.
All of
It's
this thing.
this is a podcast episode about like helping you like navigate through day-to-day life with court cases like coming or impending, right? It's like I don't know your situation specifically, like you as the listener, not Nika's, but like just I can't or we can't give you specific advice for your situation outside of coaching because I don't know the nuances like you,
Right.
right?
Right.
And I think
Yeah.
it's just the hardest to like not take everything so personally. Ugh.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and we've been taught our whole life and have had practice our whole life, when you have a disagreement with somebody, right? You're gonna give them context for how you arrived there, and you're gonna explain and then listen and like share hold perspectives and this whole thing. And you have to learn a whole new dance. Because I guarantee you, if you engage that and you start explaining, okay, oh, here's where I was coming from. Now it's just, then there's this like role reversal, right? We've got the person that you're trying to explain it to is saying like, oh, you're making this all about you. Oh, no, I'm just trying to help you understand where I was coming from, how I arrived here. I'd love to hear your perspective. It's just, it doesn't matter what you do. They'll find something wrong with it. So yeah,
Oh
it's a
my
whole new
gosh.
thing.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you this. So you were talking about like the best interest of the kids, like as
Yeah.
far as like courts looking at that. So a stepmom that is trying to navigate this, how does she differentiate between best interest of the kids versus being taken advantage of?
Mm. Give
Because
me
it
an
can
example.
look the same, right?
Like best, give me an example. Tell me what you
So
mean.
let's say um I had somebody ask me about this, so without like outing their situation. So let's say that there is like a transition day. I'm just going to use this example. A transition day of where their partner can't pick up the kids, but they could. And so it's the
Mhm.
best interest of the kids to like stay on that same routine of
Yeah.
like the same time frame. But how do I know that I'm not being taken advantage of? Because now all of a sudden I'm always the one doing it, or I'm always the one that is enforcing whatever it is, or is making sure that they've got like the lines can be very blurred, right? It's very easy to argue, oh, it's in the best interest of the kid, so of course you have to do it. Okay, well,
Yeah.
where do I start and stop versus like where does the blended family start and stop?
Yeah, that's okay. Thanks. That helps a lot. So I think in this case, it's a conversation about roles,
Mhm.
with your partner. And honestly, I mean, you're as a stepmom, you're a partner to your partner, supporting them with their kiddos. And so you're kind of the addition, but and if you can, and if it works for you, and if you have this conversation about roles and you've accepted that, great. But I wouldn't get into the um taking it on or doing more than the biological parent and feeling obligated to do those things. It's not your role. It's really not. It's
Mhm.
not in the best interest either. It's in the best interest that their parents get to be their parents and they have a supportive home environment. And if you can do that, great. If you choose to, great. If that becomes, if you're the one who drops them off and picks them up all the time and you decide within your family that that works for you, great. But not out of obligation or any sort of guilt of like, oh, this is what's best for them. But really, like, I have to leave early from work every day. And that's really, yeah, that needs to come second. So,
And I think those conversations are really hard and they're really scary
yeah.
for stepmoms because, anytime that you, as a stepmom, say, I'm struggling with this,
Yeah.
and then you say, as it pertains to the kids, you're evil. You just don't like them. You don't
Yep.
love them as much as I do. You're not as invested as I am, right? And so I think that that line is really blurred as far as like, okay, how do I approach this without making my partner feel like I don't love their kids? And so I think that there's this common misconception of like, you have to love the kids as much as your partner does.
Right.
No,
Right.
please don't get caught in that trap.
Right. Agreed.
It's so hard to just be a stepmom, but then also like be a stepmom in a high conflict situation.
Oh, yeah.
And your
Yeah.
life is like unfolding. It's one of those things that people say, like, oh, you knew what you signed up for. I did not know that I was signing up for
No.
this, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. No. No, I don't think anyone knows. And especially when it's high conflict, because if you haven't had any experience with this, which most people haven't, you just keep thinking like, okay, this will get better, or like she'll calm down, or oh, it's been 6 years, or eh, it's its own animal. And so yeah, you don't know. You don't know. You have no idea. And we've talked about this before, having our own needs, like when the end of the day and we're tired and we just want to like unwind in the kitchen and kind of make dinner, and then you've got a bunch of kids coming in and doing stuff, and you kind of get tense, and your partner's like, oh, you don't want them in here, like do you not like them? I'm exaggerating, but the
But
idea is,
not.
yeah, you could communicate with your partner outside of this time, but this is my time at the end of the day where I feel kind of at max, and I just kind of want to, zone out and make a pasta sauce and sit here and stir it while my brain kind of takes a
Yeah.
break. And so, yes, I love the kids, but when they're in here and they're grabbing and there's this and there's that, and it's, oh, that's hot, and that's like, I need a break so that I can show up, and it's like filling your cup, right? Like I need to be my best self. And the way that I do that is I need a little bit of recharging. And so it really evolves over time as you're, in your unique blended family situation, and you will find all of these trouble spots, right? Like, gosh, this was never a thing before, but now I'm really stressed out around dinner because I know they're all going to come in here and want to get their hands in. And but then it leads to these really great conversations that can sometimes be hard with your partner. But then it's like, that's when I feel the most loved. It's like when he's my advocate and he comes in, he's like, guys, we're gonna go outside and throw the ball, I'm just gonna stay in here and make dinner or whatever. And it's like they all leave and it's silent. And I'm like, oh, but I
You
just
love me.
loved and seen. And I'm like, yeah. So it's little things like that. That again, you don't know what this is going to look like.
Mhm.
We don't practice for this, and it may have looked different before. So
And I think
yeah.
it ebbs and flows though too. Like things that
Oh,
you might have been okay with at the beginning, you're not okay with now, or things that you weren't okay with, like now you're okay with. Like things change over time. And depending on like how your family is blending or not blending, like it definitely matters too.
for sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the
And
ages of the kids and yeah.
yeah, conversations get easier, and learning each of you, um, each parent learning to not take things so personally. Like it's not about you or your kids, or it's not about me or my kids. It's
Mhm.
just what I need in this for me,
Yeah.
and sometimes that's a calmer environment, which has nothing to do with my kids or your kids. It's just I need some calm. So whether that means I'm going to go for a walk or can you take them outside, it's not, please remove your children from me.
I hate them. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I hate them, obviously. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because like you had said, we did talk about this before, and it's something that I didn't realize when I was just a stepmom, how overwhelming it was to have so many people. There were three of them, right? Like my two stepkids and my husband. And I was just like, wow, this is a lot. Like the constant noise to go from like single and like having my own life to a house full of people, full three people. I know somebody's listening to this and like, that's not that many people. Correct. Like, well, especially you, right? There's five of them, five kids
yep,
and your husband. And
yep,
I'm like, that was a lot to just go from peace and silence and like you could eat off the floor to like, whoa, hockey and sports and mess and like all of the things and a pet and like what is happening. And I was like, maybe I am an evil stepmom because this is a lot. And it wasn't so much like I was telling you, it wasn't so much that I didn't like my stepkids. It was just that I was really overstimulated. Like that was a lot of chaos and a lot of noise. And I need to retreat. Like I need the peace and calm in my life. And then same thing now that I've got my daughter who like never goes to her mom's house. Like she's always here. Like the noise and the chaos is always here. And I'm like, whoa, this is a lot. Okay, that wasn't specifically like stepmom stuff. That was just me as a person. And I think it's easy to blend and blur those lines and not know again like where I start and stop versus where like step family stuff starts and stops.
yeah, exactly. Yes, I'm thinking of, in between, when I um was a single mom and my kids were with their dad every other week and I'm completely by myself and I'm recharging and I'm rested all the time and I'm this and that. And then you jump into, yes, we have five boys between us and two dogs and a husband. So we have a big family and there's not a lot of the same types of quiet pockets like that. You have to create them. So I
What?
encourage people to go, yeah, create that. It's important. Make it a priority.
Yeah, go for your walk. Well, like you had said, when the kids transition, again, this was something we talked about before, when the kids are transitioning back, there's a lot going on, and you're like, I go for a walk.
Yep. Yeah, I do. For years, it's like, on transition day, they come back and of course, so excited. And I love that they're so excited. But what that looks like in reality is the door opening, one of the dogs is getting out, both the dogs are barking, someone's left something in the car, there's five kids talking all at one time. And I'm just like, oh my God, like it's so overwhelming and it takes so long for everything to calm down.
Mhm.
And so I started not too long ago, just going for a walk during that time. On transition day, I go for a walk when the kiddos all transition back. And so when I come back, first of all, I'm like my best self because I've just been out in nature, which is my favorite thing in life. And I'm recharged and I'm good. And then I come back and I can go to each of their rooms and say hi and have a one-on-one conversation and nobody's barking. And, it's just, there's this kind of, at least for me, I felt like I want to be present for those moments. It's important I'm there to receive them. It's important that and I think it is, but I also think they absolutely value our one-on-one time when I get back. Like, I don't
Mhm.
think anyone's sitting there. In fact, I know they're not because we've had the conversation being like, why were you there to receive me? It's the
Yeah.
pressure we put on ourselves, right? Like we think we're supposed to show up in a certain way when really what they want, yeah, is our time and attention. And I can give it to them this way, but
Mhm.
not so much when I'm like, my
Yeah.
God.
And I too, like, I would like to be there to receive them when I'm feeling peace and calm, as opposed to like when they get there and I'm like, oh my
Uh-huh.
gosh. Right? Because that also can set and affect the tone for when they're with you.
Yeah.
Oh, she must be mad at us, or she might be, she's angry about whatever. So it makes this weird vibe. And it's like, it's not you guys, it's literally me. Like, I'm just struggling over here. It's not you guys.
And especially if you're dealing with in a high conflict situation,
Mhm.
kiddos are already very perceptive to people's moods, sudden shift in moods, perceptions of is someone irritated or pulling back. So, being mindful of that as well. Like I know that they're perceptive of
Mhm.
those types of things, and I don't want to present as if in any way something that either they've done or just that they've walked in on that they're like, oh no, what happened this week? What do we need to navigate?
Mhm.
So yeah, I think the way you show up is really important. And I show up best after a walk. So,
After some time by yourself. Okay, what is something that we did not discuss about a high conflict situation that you wish we would have?
that's a really good question. Huh.
Thanks.
We
I
talked.
stole it from I listened to the Diary of a CEO podcast with Stephen Bartlett. I don't know if you listen to him. I love it because the guests are so wide ranging, but that's something that he asks sometimes, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take that. So you're the first guest I've asked it to.
It's great.
Like
Well,
anything.
okay. So I'm a little on the spot. I don't have a specific name, but speaking of podcasts, I will tell you that dealing with a high conflict co-parent, you can get a lot of tips and tricks from listening to hostage negotiators.
Yeah. He's
Yeah.
had a lot of FBI people on his podcast,
Yes.
The Diary, and so I really like those ones. I find it very interesting because they talk about like body language and like how to,
Yes.
yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
what tips have you like listened to or heard or learned that you're like, oh, that's really good to know?
Well, it's just because as we were talking about before, when you're trying to, when you're problem solving with a rational person and you're kind of, you're giving context and there's give and take and like all those kinds of things, you have to learn this new language. And so what are kind of the ways that like, you're making them essentially feel like it's a win for them, but
Hmm.
without it's kind of you're getting in your own way is really
Yeah.
what's happening, right? Because so just learning kind of some little tips and tricks, and I find it fascinating. I mean, human psychology is so fascinating, and I just find listening to the hostage negotiations is just like, oh, that's very similar. You're dealing with somebody who's hell bent on something, right? They are determined, and like, how can you talk to someone when there is no give and take, and it is all black and white? Like, how can you get them to open up or get them to kind of at least meet you a little bit. So there's
Yeah.
that.
I
Yeah.
completely agree. If I didn't have to start like completely over and like go back to college and like get my undergrad in that and then like master's, like I told you, my cousin's doing that right now, where he's getting
Yeah.
his master's. But I'm like, I totally would. But that's like another 8 years. And yeah, I'm like, I can just coach. But yeah, I find it really fascinating too, like the human psychology. I'm always like, oh my gosh, to my husband, like, listen to this. And he's like, Alicia, what are you
Yeah.
doing?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And get your binder ready.
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yeah. Do
Yeah.
you have, I don't know if you do, I did see, I don't know, like a week ago, like on Instagram, somebody had like an Excel or a Google Sheet of like for documenting. Do you have a free resource or something like that? Or she was selling it, but do you have something like that? Like, where can people find you? Let's start there. Like, where can people
Yeah,
find
so you can find me on my website. I'm on TikTok, Instagram way less, but yeah. So I actually that's one of the things I do is teach a kind of a thorough documentation process for people specifically with high conflict co-parenting. So um, it's so involved, and so but starting with Google Drive, I think is a good thing. I would say here's one, just like a small tip. I would say if you are having to do screenshots, for evidence, that person's in your phone, it shouldn't be their name. It should be their phone number. Because the high
you?
conflict person will argue that's not really me. And you're gonna have to go through the phone record, you have to subpoena. It's just like a whole thing rather than like screenshotting and it says like this went to number 425,
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I give lots of tips like that for people to document as they go and more of a step-by-step process. But as far as a spreadsheet, no. And I would just do for in your Google Drive, I would have that going constantly, and it would just be like the date, what happened, and then you're going to leave the pattern, and that can change. Like, so you can put it in as like, um, late to arrival or late to drop off, whatever. But as you go, you might be like, oh, that's a failure to co-parent, right? I'm going to call it that. So rough draft it until you kind of get a coach to get you going. But yeah, date, time, and what happened is really.
Yeah, so important. So do you teach this class like live? Do you teach it like in a course? Do you teach it like through coaching? How do you teach it?
Yeah, I do the one-on-one coaching is how I
Okay.
do that. Yeah. And it usually will take the full hour to go through just the documentation piece, but most often two, um, because it's a complex process. But once you have it, it's
Mhm.
really easy to update. And once you get going on it, it's like, and what I tell people is you have office hours. Okay, this is not going to take over your
Yeah.
life.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we're
We've
going
talked
to
about
do
that.
whatever that is for you. Don't do it right before bed because we don't need that in our brains right before we go to bed. And I wouldn't do it first thing when you wake up for the same reason, right? I don't want to set the tone for our day. But I would find an hour max per day that you're going to work on your binder, your court case, your evidence, whatever is happening for you. And outside of that time, we're not going to be working on it. You set your timer, you go for an hour, you're at work, that's what you're doing, and then you're done.
Mhm.
And it will get done. It will get done. But otherwise, it's just in your brain all day. You're ruminating on it. You're worried about it. It's leaking out into the kids, into our homes, and yeah, it's intrusive. So it needs to stay in its box. And same thing with your co-parent communication. I tell
Mhm.
clients the same thing. You can pick one or two times. It depends on what your court order says. Sometimes there's requirements. You have to answer an email within 24 or 48 hours. But pick a time. Don't have the alerts come to your phone. Have a separate email for them. Hopefully it's court ordered, but a lot of times they won't agree to that. Um, don't have them texting you. Like it should be as separate from your life as you can possibly make it and stay within the court order.
Okay, I love that you just said don't have them texting you.
Yeah.
Or like that's how we communicate. I know there are other apps. Do you have any that you recommend, or like what are pros and cons to having them?
I my first choice always would be a court ordered app. Like Our Family Wizard is a good one because you can tell it's all documented for court. So it had, you can pull reports on it. It can tell you when they opened it. There's also, features like expenses. You can share expenses or a calendar or something, and you keep it all in one place. You
Mhm.
don't have the alerts coming to your phone. So when you decide, or, every day at 5, I check my co-parent email. Um, that's ideal. That's the most ideal thing because it's separate from your life. And that's what you're trying to do, right? You can't heal and move on when this person who's hell bent on causing you chaos is on your phone. They're pinging you, they're, needing their answers, whatever. And it's yeah, it's best that they have their own box. And that is court ordered would be first. Second would just be email only.
Mm-hmm.
They really truly don't need to be texting you or calling you unless there's an emergency in a high conflict situation. Now, if you get along, that's fine. If that's an agreement, that's no problem, right? It's like anybody else. Like it's just easier, it's faster, whatever. But if you're dealing with a high conflict person, I would never recommend texting unless it's an emergency. Life or limb.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. This has been so wonderful having you, Nika. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this week's episode. If anything was helpful or resonated with you, please share it on social media and tag me. I'm just at Alicia Krasko. And if you could leave a 5-star rating and a review while you're at it, that would also be really helpful. And if you find yourself struggling with your stepmom journey and you want a little bit more support without the hefty price tag of coaching, you might want to check out the Stepmom Side community, which is my own private community for stepmoms, where you get to connect with other stepmoms around the world and myself, where I hold weekly office hours and monthly group coaching. It's kind of like you have your own personal coach in your own back pocket. Again, without that hefty price tag. See you next week.